know you're an exotic dancer. And although I didn't exactly do that, I did not do that or get paid for it, at least. Maybe I should have gotten paid for it.
Yeah, you missed out on the good part.
Yeah, you better believe it. That's the whole point, right? I mean, some wild nights out, that's for sure. But one of my good friends in grad school was an exotic dancer. She was putting herself through school. And I remember I was walking that line. I was like, she had her own house. She had like an Escalade. And this was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever the hell it was. And it was very tempting. And we were living that fun party life, and we were in school and going out at night. And so I really almost was. I almost was. And it probably was the very strict Catholic girl upbringing in me that just couldn't pull the trigger because I wouldn't be able to look my dad in the eye or something, like guilt of it all. I had enough guilt as it was. So that was probably the only reason why I didn't.
Interesting. I had kind of the almost opposite. So I was an exotic dancer for 17 years.
That's amazing.
It was a really long time. And my first experience, I was in the process of like going to college and working full time. And when you work for an hourly wage and you're not doing what your soul came here to do, you just know there's something more. And when I had the opportunity to dance for the very first time, I was living at home still. I was 19. And I let my mom know I was going with these people to Vegas to dance. And she looked at the people and she said, "You be careful, that's my baby." And luckily I got introduced by the right people. They were like, "Look, you stay sober. This is a job." And I did. And I came home with a large amount of money. And being raised in poverty, my mom was a single mom raising us on her own. She looked at me and she said, you go get him, Tiger.
Nice. Right.
Yeah. She fully like backed and supported me in the journey, which made it so that this lifestyle that so many women, hide who they are, I was able to wear it proudly. For me, I decided it was just going to be dancing. One of the beauties is to the people who brought me into it said, we're never going to judge you. Each person has their own boundaries, but it's really important that you identify them now, because there's going to be a lot of people who want to tell you what to do, pay you to do something you don't want to do.
Good advice.
Yeah. And for me, I also know that I have this background, as many dancers do, from traumatic, like sexual experiences. And I think that going into that is also an opportunity and a space where you can heal if done right. And so finding my power and saying no to the things that weren't in alignment, and having that safety in the club where I was backed by big bouncers in the corner. And so saying no over and over again taught me this power that I didn't even realize that I had. And so there was a healing for me that happened. And the income allowed me to invest in teachers and gurus. And like your friend who had the Escalade, I looked really deeply in the beginning at the women who were in the industry, and I saw the ones that were drinking and partying and what happened to them in a couple years, versus the business-minded women who invested the money and used their time wisely and made decisions at the very beginning that this was a career. And so I started studying the psychology of men and business and energy, and working with energy on the stage to the places where I would dance with all of my heart and receive these standing ovations, which you don't normally receive in a strip club. But in reality, it
came through.
That some of the best healers are not in positions where you're paying them for healing. They're the janitors at the school that really care about the kids. And in my case, it was the exotic dancer on stage.
That's amazing. It's so true. Everything you just said is like, it's just like spinning in my head, because and that was probably the draw for me to the exotic dancing, Nicole, because as I've shared, I think it was episode 74 of my show, I did a solo cast on trauma. And I didn't get into too many details about, I've had several really traumatic, that's what actually got me working with Paul one-on-one, is to heal some of this really deep trauma. I just couldn't heal it. But now that you're seeing that, like, that probably was my little attraction to even thinking, like, considering being an exotic dancer, like, because I think what I'm trying to say is, I think a part of me wanted to feel powerful again, wanted to take that back. I wanted to take back my sexuality. I wanted to own my body again. And if I even want to admit it, probably feel like I have power over the man this time. I mean, if I'm really being honest, I'm just trying to think. Maybe that was part of my attraction to it, because part of me wanted that back.
It could definitely go that direction. And it did for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
the first 7 years of dancing before I had my daughter, um, I can remember a moment when it wasn't the prettiest. It was all about money and how much somebody was paying me. And um, I I had a shifting point when I got pregnant with my daughter, and the only one who was available to care for, I had an uncle who was dying from obesity, and I stayed with him for about 6 months to help him pass. And realizing that he, in his whole lifetime, really hadn't been touched with love, like genuine
Wow.
love. And
Mm.
even I could feel my grandmother come to me in the hours of him passing, asking me to touch him like his mother, but
Mm.
that everybody had seen him in his obese body with such disgust, that to give him that gift of passing with genuine care and love. And then I realized that in going back after having my daughter, I didn't think I was going to go back, but then I became a single mother, and it was such a gift to have that to go back to. um, I really shifted from, you should pay me more, to that may be the dollar that this person has to give. How can I bless them with the love? How can I touch them with almost the energy of the divine feminine or their mother? Because I think that that's why there's this sex and violence, love and loss that is in that scene of the sex industry. And I have so many stories of men telling me how it shifted their their life in some way. It's at one time I had a gentleman who would come in, and is it okay if I just tell these little fun stories?
Please, we're just, nobody else is listening. It's just you and me. Let's forget about the thousands of people that are listening of our personal hearts on the line here.
Good. So in Utah, the lunch shift is actually one of the best money shifts, because all of the LDS Mormon men can't come in at night because they're home with their families. So they come in during their lunch shift. And there was one gentleman who would come in, and, it's customary to tip at least $1 per song. And he was known for tipping $1 for all three songs. And the girls would always complain because sometimes he'd be the only person. And for me, I'm like, this is 15 minutes of my life. I can either sit on stage and be upset that it's just $1, or I can dance for God. And I would do that, and I would feel better coming off a stage instead of feeling grumpy that I only made a certain amount of money. And one day he came in after probably 3 or 4 years of knowing him, and there's always a fan blowing on stage at the summer, and he put $100 bill down, and he said, "Don't let this one blow away." And I looked at it, I'm like, what? And he's like, "I'm moving, but I want you to know that I have 9 children at home, and I work so hard to provide for them. And you, the last 4 years, have just lifted my heart a little bit. And I wanted you to have this before I left."
Oh my God, Nicole, what a story.
It's, there's so much magic in so many places, including, some of the darkest.